Good Thursday morning, and welcome to Ice Age TV. That's the Ice Age TV, the internal combustion engine age TV. Which is it that? Wow, good Thursday morning, man. Whew, I had a hard time getting to sleep last night. I'm back onto this damn Netflix series, but hey, good Thursday morning there. For all those that continue to listen to me run my mouth, hey. I mean, yeah, I usually think to myself, what have I created? Yeah, what have I created? The craziness of the channels of the YouTube creator that has just divulged all of the good, the bad, the ugly. Oh my goodness. So yeah, I'm back into this, watching this, The Lincoln Lawyer. And you know, it turns into 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, it's like, I gotta go to bed. And then I don't fall asleep till 3:30 in the morning. Oh my goodness. It's a good series to a degree. It's The Lincoln Lawyer on Netflix. You might enjoy it. So, man, it's another hot Florida day here. I always use this as the Florida example, because when I go to Florida, it's so hot down there, and that's what we're getting up here. But down in Florida, you don't really get the break as you get up here, and that's been one nice thing about this area is you will get the run of just hot, humid, sauna-like weather, but still not at the level that Florida gets on a regular basis. And it's just incredible on us up here. We'll finally get a little break, and this afternoon or evening, we're supposed to have some major storms coming through. That's going to bring a cold front with it, and tomorrow it's going to be 70s. The weekend's going to be like the 70s and 80s. So we're going to get a big break. So this is the last hot day for a while. Let's get inside here and check out the dogs. I didn't get them in here, I don't know, 10:30 or later last night. Oh, wow, here's Willow. Here is Tango. You know, Willow and Tango have been buddies from day one. We got them as a twofer. Uh-oh. The wife has a box. Oh, she's back. Oh, she's back up to her antics. I've caught her red-handed, everybody. Yep, she's telling me. Yep, so she's back to her antics. Okay, well, you witnessed it. That box was had bones in it. Oh my goodness. Oh, you just can't beat the timing. So it doesn't fail. Oh, the joy of owning dogs. Come on, pups. Let's go. Come on. They're up the street there. Hopefully Gypsy doesn't decide to go play with them, because then I'll have to turn off the phone here. Come on back. Come on back. Come on back. Gypsy. Come on back. Gypsy. Gypsy. See, Gypsy's right over there. Gypsy. No. 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 Got everybody out now. Lawnmowers. And there's something about Gypsy, I think, that shouldn't like those lawnmowers. Come on, puppies. Come on. Gypsy. Yeah, it's out of control. Oh, everything's out of control, everybody. So here we are. So, yeah. So I was saying, Tango, Gail, reached out thinking that I should get rid of Tango. I don't know why. I don't know what spurred that. It's kind of weird. I mean, I know I have problems. And I'm weird, but I'm going to tell you what. I got a lot of subscribers, and I think that a lot of my subscribers have challenges as well, and I do know that. So, in many ways, I thought I'm weird, but there's a lot of weirdness out there, everybody, and I'm kind of keeping it that. So, yeah. So for Tango and Willow, they've been teammates for 12 years. They've been together since I took them away. And Gail thought that it would be a good idea for me to give up Tango for some reason. I guess she thinks that by not having Tango, my life won't be as complicated. Well, yeah, that's like saying you have 4 kids and one of them goes away and your life isn't still complicated. Where, Ginger, come on. So I appreciate, I mean, you know, I get the message. In Gail's world, her view is she's trying to help out the situation. That's nice. A nice idea, but it's something that I would not do. It wouldn't be fair to the dog. I personally think it'd be very challenging for not only Tango to be taken away from the world that he only knows. If I gave Tango to Gale, he would be all by himself. So he'd go from being with a pack of dogs and Willow, and then he would be in a whole different environment. And I just think that would be a psychological challenge for that dog. And Willow, I think Willow also would be. But for me, I was no way. Tango's one of my buddies. Tango's part of the pack. I have a pack of dogs, even though I may bitch about them. Yeah, whatever. If life worked off the bitching, everybody bitches, I guess. Maybe once again, I'm different, everybody. So here we are. So what's really interesting is I definitely get a kick out of the comments. I know sometimes the comments can get a little out of control, but it's a public forum for the most part. So for me, I get a kick out of how Ronaldo is on the page that he feels like I have been abused. But this is good stuff. All right, so for the record, this by no means is me wanting to call out Ronaldo or anybody on my channel. It's good stuff. His position is, and I think it's a great point. I think that he has a valid point. Now, for me playing the victim, that isn't who I am. So, am I really up for trying to file a lawsuit against the automotive industry to appease me and get out of this financial dire straits I've created myself? That isn't. I can't see that playing out. But I love the conversation of the comments between one view by one person and a totally different other view for another person. And that's how we all are. We all have such opposing views, and then we have supporting views. So the one subscriber thinks that basically Ronaldo's idea is beyond believably stupid and crazy and ridiculous. But Ronaldo's idea, his position is, he feels it's justified. That for me, having all these repossessions and all these vehicles that I owned all at one time, that the auto industry and the banks and the car dealerships, they ought to be part of the problem, and they should be punished for it because they helped my addiction. Which I've talked about this my whole life, that I have a car addiction. I've always have said I should be the guy that starts the caraholic. I can't even think of the Alcoholics Anonymous, Caraholics Anonymous, for people that have the same problem I have. It's a big problem, but not at the radical extreme that you witnessed on my channel, but people that have addictions to going out and buying a car, truck, whatever it may be, vehicle, it's huge. And any long-term salesperson, any long-term general manager, any long-term finance person will tell you that my personality is out there with a lot of people. I'll never forget the last purchase that I bought, the Chevy Blazer electric vehicle. The finance guy there, he was telling me about this one older guy that just goes, he buys a brand new Chevy vehicle from this is Kuhn's Chevy White Marshmallow, my last purchase of last year of the Blazer. He was telling me about just one guy that all this guy does is buys a car from him, and he'll drive it home, and a few months later he brings it back, and he just buys another one. I'm not lying. He puts 90 miles on it, 100 miles on it, 200 miles on it. That's all this guy does. The guy has a ton of money, and for something for him to do, his enjoyment is he buys a new vehicle from the dealership, and then 2, 3, 4 months down the road, he'll just bring back the vehicle and just buy another one. And I've heard these stories. I've heard these stories numerous times of people that will buy a car, and 6 months later they come back and they get a different car. Or maybe it's a year. Some others may be a year or 2 years. But I hear these stories from salespeople, general managers, finance people, of people who have these personalities, not as extreme as mine, that have this consistent feed of having to get a new or different vehicle. I have personal friends around me that I know personally that have the same problem I have, but not at the level that I have. So I told the one subscriber that uses a unique subscriber name that's on my channel, and I'm not here to be rude per se, but he did kind of make a pretty harsh statement. So last night it's kind of like, man, that's just kind of rude. I mean, come on. I mean, if you step back, and I even told the subscriber that I'm going to use him per se. I'm going to use his comment to create some conversation, which I think is good. I mean, you did me a favor. So Ronaldo and the other subscriber, they've given me a chance to think to myself, how could I bring some comments and content and step back for a second, and all of us can kind of look at things, and maybe in one person's view will be different from mine. But if you step back and think about the industry, I've always have said that the car industry, the automotive industry, the gas station industry, it's what drives this whole country. We'd be a third world country without the infrastructure of the cars and the gas stations, because the car industry has so many things attached to it, which you have in car insurance, the computers, the repair facilities, the body shops, the mechanical, the new cars, the used cars, the transport trucks, the manufacturing. I mean, it's infinite. If you start going through the vehicles, how many hands are in the pie, and how much money is made off the automotive industry, it's massive. And so I thought to myself, it's interesting on how you go back to the housing industry back in 2000, the 2000 years. It was an incredible dynamic time that I didn't understand at that time, didn't know what was going on. And had I known what was going on, I probably wouldn't have started a business that got me into deep financial challenges that ended up bankrupting the company and myself years ago. But I didn't understand. I didn't know back in the 2000 years that the government had changed the regulations in the home purchasing powers with no doc loans. A no doc loan means no proof of income. So back in 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, those were incredibly hot years in the real estate market, because people were buying homes and they didn't have to go through the process of proving they could afford the home through their financial incomes. They just wrote down a piece of paper on an application, whatever they want, and they got a home. And then I started, I'll never forget being at Coons Tyson's Toyota. I've told this story many times. And this is like 2004 or 5, I think. Maybe even 2006. I can remember a young salesman there telling me he owned 8 homes. I'm like, you own 8 houses? And so what he was doing is he was renting the houses, but he was also flipping the houses. If you don't know what that means, it means you buy a house for $200,000, and if you somebody to buy it for $300 or $400 from you, you dump it and you cash out of it and take the money and go do it all over again somewhere else. So that had no idea back in 2005. I was puzzled in 2005 and 6, even 2004, that wherever I went, everybody had just tons of money. I was just always like, where is all this money coming from? Never knowing everybody's taking credit lines on their homes. They're basically saying you owe $200,000 on it. The market now shows it's worth $400,000. If you want to take $100,000 out of it and refinance it and owe $300,000 on it, then you can do that. I had no idea. And I got so wrapped up in everybody having money that I truly wanted to make even more money, and I wanted to change direction of my life and career, and I got hell-bent on wanting to go a different direction, and I did, not knowing that this was all really fake money. It was all money coming out of people's pockets that they were using their home as their little ATM, their big ATM. I'll never forget, there's one boat dealership I went to, and this guy bought double high-performance $200,000 boats. I mean, I witnessed this guy, and I'm just looking, like, who is this guy that has like $400,000? And the guy wrote a check for these 2 boats, and I'm just like, wow. I mean, so anyways, the reason I'm bringing this up is that whole financial crisis that panned out in 2008 and 9 was the no doc loan. It was the home industry was out of control. People were buying houses like never ever seen. The market was on fire, but then eventually it started to go out. The fire began to turn into smoke. Yeah, it got smoked out, meaning when the smoke cleared, people started realizing how many mistakes they had made, because the guy that bought the home for 200 grand sold it to the next guy for 400. The guy that bought it for 400 sold it to the next guy for 600. Then the guy that bought it for 600 got probably caught up about the time that the reality was starting to play out in the housing market, that people were just flipping homes, and now you're stuck. And so the guy and the couple that bought the home that thought they could flip it and they wouldn't have to pay for it, that started to play out and things started to slow down. Me not having any idea. In 2007, I can remember, I started my business in April of 2007, and I'll never forget September 2007. It's like somebody flipped a switch and the lights turned off. It was the weirdest thing. It's just like everything just changed. It was just an eerie thing. Not knowing that everybody and their brother is going broke in the housing industry because everybody's now bought homes that they paid way too much money for and they can't get out of them. And now they never really wanted them for long term. They were just using for them to invest monies and cash out of monies. So what came from that, as you know, it then rolled to the automotive industry. So now everybody's borrowing money to buy cars and trucks and motorcycles, SUVs, boats, blah, blah, blah. Though it all started playing out where people didn't have the money because they tapped out of their home, and now they have a huge debt to repay, and they can't afford to pay for their cars. So it was like a domino effect in the whole our country, where Obama came in and the Democratic Party was blaming the Republican Party for allowing such lackadaisical standards of people getting homes without documentation, and so that created a whole new avenue for the government to get involved and to try to clean up the housing market and to go after the banks. The government went after the banks. I think people forget. I mean, it's incredible how many people failed in the housing market back in 2008, 9, and 10, and the banks failed, and they were just given a wave. They were just given, it was such dire straits that the government intervened, and that's something that just one subscriber is saying, is that why do you want to get the government involved? And I'm saying, I'm not the guy pitching wanting the government involved in everything, but there does come a fine line in the world we live in the country we live in the big business that runs the country, where there is a fine line where maybe big government does have to step in to manhandle what the big guy will do to the little guy. So when Barack Obama came in, they forced bank tests to see how liquid they were, to see how solvent they were. Does anyone remember all this? Probably not. A lot of people probably don't remember this stuff. But the government really did start squeezing the banks to try to stop this frivolous lending, and they forced them to rewrite the guidelines on how you can qualify to buy a home. So after the 2008, 9, 10 financial crisis, the housing market all changed, the dynamics changed, where you just couldn't own 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 homes. You had to go now through a very stringent process. You'll even hear people today talk about how much more challenging it is than it was so many years ago to buy a home, because you have to show so much of everything: proof of income, tax returns, pay stubs, the banks are much more strict on who they lend money to, and you have to put down a certain amount of money to qualify for the home, blah, 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 blah. There were a lot of actors all involved back in 2004, 5, 6, 7. You had my brother and my dad they were doing this. My dad owned like 8 homes at one time, where he was picking them up, renovating them, and then trying to make a sale off of them. And for him, he came in way too late. He even got caught up in that. he barely skated that. But here's the thing: the banking laws back in that time used to have what they call non-recourse. I've talked about this before on my channel many times. Non-recourse loans, meaning in Florida, in other states, I think maybe Arizona, maybe California, there were select states where the banking regulations had no recourse, that if you failed making your payments on your house, they could take it away from you. And let's just say you borrowed and owed $400 on it, and it was only worth $200,000, and there's a $200,000 discrepancy. There's no recourse, so the bank could not chase you for the difference in monies that the bank had lent you. That was huge. That was a huge problem that started this whole real estate craziness back in that 2000 era, because all the investors, all the people that knew the laws, they saw how they could go out and it was a no-fail ballgame, where you and I could go out and buy a ton of houses in Florida or Arizona. We could try to flip them, rent them, do whatever, and it didn't work out. Who cares? They can't do anything to us. They can't touch us. So that was all changed as well. So the non-recourse, then the government stepped in and said, hey, no. So if you look back at the 2000 years, you can look at the housing market where the government didn't really have the screws to the lending institutions on how the craziness came to be and how banks failed and the government had to intervene, and then all the cronies started showing up, all the people falsifying records, it was huge. There were finance people killing themselves. There was, I said it before, there was a young finance person right here in Oakton, Virginia, that had a beautiful big mansion home, and he was one of these bank lender guys that had done devious things. And then once they started going through the books, they were going to show how this guy was doing devious lending practices. He hung himself, killed himself, left himself a wife and children, because he knew he was going to go into jail for criminal activity. This was big stuff. This was going on, where the books were being cooked to even get these loans done. So government came in, and now here we are 15 years later. You go try to buy a home, it's not that easy to buy a home. So you fast forward, and let's go now to the automotive industry. The automotive industry is a no-doc loan. Is a no-doc loan typically transaction. You do not have to prove your income to buy a vehicle. Typically. It depends on your credit score. There's some variables there. But for the most part, I have never had to show proof of income for myself or my business in the last, I'd have to say, 10, 15 years. At least. It was more of a relationship with all these automotive dealerships and the finance companies and the financial person that always got me the deal. It was always, I had a history and a record of paying my debts, paying my bills. So, kind of going now back to the one subscriber saying, why do you want the government involved? Well, what if the government took the auto industry and forced a hand that people have to show proof of income? And I'm not here to say that I showed false income. I didn't do that. The thing is, it's what they call, it's the hidden debt. And back in the 2008, 9, 10 crisis, the banking industry, the government was wanting to rewrite the way that lending standards and practices are done. Meaning, when you own a business and you have business debt, that doesn't show up in your personal credit. So when somebody pulls my personal credit, they don't see that I have 10 or 12 or 15 company vehicles that the company pays the debt for. And this is where there was a lot of language back in 2010 that they thought they should rewrite the way that credit is evaluated of small business owners, because the small business owner, you don't see the real picture of what's going on. And so then when you go to my personal debt, it's just what I own and my own personal name, personal registration. So there's a lot of going back and forth back in the 2010, 11, 12 era under the Obama administration of wanting to change how these finance companies lent money and how they looked at it. And it was always a dirty secret of how many business owners had an incredible amount of debt against them with their business, but the lenders didn't see this, meaning that the private side, the personal side, not the company side, they only saw what I was buying in my personal name. They had no clue how much debt I had on my company that had to be paid for as well. So that's where it gets the simply sloppy, that's where it kind of gets into the fog of how the hell do you own all these vehicles. But it goes on all the time. And on top of that, hey, what are you doing? Don't be crapping. Got the bone. Yeah, so what goes on, the government back in 2010, 11, 12, they were wanting to separate the finance side in an automotive dealership from the automotive dealership. They were very close. There was very long time, even 2014, 15, they were talking about taking away the powers to be in the dealership of the financing side that milk and get the deals done. And then so the automotive dealership, you go to the dealership, but you had to go to a separate facility that offered the financing. It was seriously being talked about because the government saw how reckless the financing lending is in these automotive dealerships, on how the finance people are so much the salespeople and even more than the salespeople, because they're the person that finally gets the deal done. I can tell you story after story of me, and I've talked about it for years and years, that it wasn't the sales guy the reason I went to the dealership. It was the finance guy. It was the finance guy that knew how to wiggle waggle and get yet another deal done by begging and pleading and talking to the right person to reverse the no. You have no idea how many no's were done, and the finance guy had to call somebody to override all the no's to get a yes. And then many times they'd be like, "You're putting your name on the line for me. I don't like it. I don't think it's worth it." But the finance person's like, don't worry about it. I'll get it done. Because these finance people make a ton of money off of every financial transaction. The worst thing a car dealership could ever have happen is that every person comes there, buys a car by writing a check or bringing cash, and they don't use the financing side of the business. That would be the death of the car dealership. It would. I mean, that would totally change the dynamics of the car. So here's the thing. So I'm going to run out of time. I'm really trying to give every angle that's going on, in which I think Ronaldo has a good, valid point. There's no doubt. Ronaldo has a very good, valid point that the automotive industry has abused its powers by abusing the consumers and taking advantage of them because of the addictions that the individuals like me and many others have that are buying vehicles that don't need to buy the vehicle. But you say to yourself, but then why are you buying that vehicle? But what we're going to do is we're going to make this a part 2 series tomorrow to talk more in depth about that, because I don't really want to turn this into a really long video. And I want to go into more about what I feel, with myself, what's happened in my life, and what I've done throughout my whole life. What drives that? What drives this car addiction? And it's a big problem. It's throughout the whole country. There's so many people that have the problem I have. It's through the roof. But we'll talk about that more tomorrow, because I got to go to work, and we'll just leave it at that to have a good another talk. And no, not me wanting to be critical or, no, what are you doing? Hey, Gypsy, what do you say? I have no desire to be critical or mean. It's Brian. Okay. Come on, pups. So, to be mean to others on my channel by, calling them out, that's not the goal here. That's not my goal. It's to take your comments and to ride with those comments, and that creates content. It creates conversation. So stay tuned for more adventures on Ice Age TV, and stay tuned for part 2 of what I feel like is going on in the car industry, and how maybe there could be a way to address this to help others like me not be in the shambles like me that I'm in. God bless.